I'm going to be honest. When coming into Ghost of Tsushima, I really didn't know much about samurai or samurai culture. Sure, as a kid, I watched shows about ninjas and pirates, but I didn't really watch classic samurai movies. So that means that Ghost of Tsushima is kind of my introduction into the samurai myths, legends, and facts. I don't expect this game to be 100% factual, obviously, but I want to use it as an introduction and see, is this something I want to learn more of? Now, before I go any further, I do want to say there's going to be some spoilers, spoiler warning, there's going to be some spoilers. I'm talking a little bit about some big moments that happen in the earlier, first act of the game. I'm not going to get too much into the second and third acts story-wise, but do want to throw it out there, do want to let you know that you might get spoiled on something. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to start talking about Ghost of Tsushima and see where it ends up on my game list. The first thing I learned is that Tsushima is an actual island. Like, it exists. Now, of course, this game isn't going to be a one-to-one recreation of the island, but that didn't make it any less enjoyable to explore. The unique thing about exploring in this game is that there is very little UI during exploration, and during the game in general, in fact. In classic open world games, there will be a compass or maybe a mini-map to direct you to your next task, but not Ghost of Tsushima. With a simple swipe of the PS4 controller touchpad, a wind blows through Tsushima, pointing our lead character Jin Sakai to his destination. There's still a map in the menus that is littered with objectives, but you don't need to focus on that. Just pick where you want to go and you can easily get there on foot or on horseback. Now, I really like exploring in this game. It even got to a point since I was actually looking at the scenery that I would start recognizing certain places, and could navigate towns easily to find who I needed to go to. I said before this is unique, and I just need to reiterate it. I think all the time that, I'm just staring at a mini-map to get from A to B, but not this game. I was able to immerse myself a lot more during the game. And for that, I'm giving exploration 83 points. The second thing I learned in Ghost of Tsushima is that samurai have a very rigid code. Now, I've read online that it isn't actually as strict and rigid as what was in the game, but hey, it made me do extra research, and that was kind of my goal. Now, the story of this game is interesting. As I mentioned, you play as Jin Sakai, and through a battle with the Mongols, he ends up being one of the last samurai on Tsushima. Khotan Khan is a Mongol general trying to take over the island, including by kidnapping... adult napping? Or old person napping? Is that rude? Either way, Jin's uncle, Lord Shimura, is taken by Khotan Khan, the Mongol general, and Lord Shimura is the head samurai of the island who actually reports straight to the shogun. Now, Jin's journey involves coming together with others on the island, including Yuna, who teaches Jin ways other than the samurai way to defeat enemies. This is not to Shimura's pleasing, and is part of the central conflict of the game. The story isn't just person versus person in the Jin versus Khotan Khan dynamic, but there is a sense of person versus self, as Jin tries to find out, does he want to follow this strict guide, or is he really the ghost that everyone thinks he is? It's interesting and, in my opinion, very well written. Some of the story bits can be a little samey, but there's a good amount of narrative twists and turns that I particularly enjoyed. All of this being said, I'm giving the story 66 points. The third thing that Ghost of Tsushima taught me actually has nothing to do with samurai culture, but it has to do with open world games. I learned that no matter what kind of spin you put on an open world game, it is still an open world game and you will have a bunch of collectibles to go after. In this game, they range from cool to way too repetitive. There are so many different kinds of shrines in this game. There are Inari shrines that cute little foxes can take you to. There are also shrines of honor that just give you some decorative design, paint, whatever you want to call it, for your katana. The most fun shrine, though, are the Shinto shrines, that give you a series of platforming tasks to complete before reaching the shrine and getting a charm with typically very useful abilities. I found these the most fun form of shrine, as I like the platforming challenge. Especially when you get the grappling hook later in the game, tons of fun. Besides shrines, there are hot springs and haiku points, and a few other collectibles that are just, These are all okay. The hot springs give you health, the haiku gives you a headband that can change your look because it's a new headband. Again, the Shinto shrines were absolutely my favorite, as I didn't really feel the need to do anything else during my playthrough of the game. I didn't find a single hot spring actually until after I beat the final main story mission. Like I said, this game taught me that an open world game will always be an open world game when it comes to collectibles, and for that, I'm giving it 32 points. The fourth and final thing I learned from Ghost of Tsushima is that samurai learned a variety of stances for sword fighting. Although I'm not 100% sure how legitimate the ones in this game are, but I found others, and I know it's kind of a real fighting style thing. The stances in this game are a little more geared though, as each stance is powerful against a certain type of enemy. Maybe you're facing a Mongol with a shield and need to use the water stance, or maybe a Mongol swordsman and you need to use the stone stance. This varies combat a little bit as you have to stay on your toes and make sure you're using the correct stance, but the variety of other items at your disposal help as well. You can throw a kunai to pretty much deplete an enemy's stamina, or a smoke bomb to hide yourself. The most powerful stance in this game is the ghost stance, where enemies are absolutely terrified of you, and you get to kill 3 enemies with easy one-hit KOs. I like that this game has the stance system, as it makes sure I'm paying attention, and I might have to switch some things on the fly. Once I have the right stance though, the fighting is pretty much the same for each enemy, which is actually a shame. The most unique fighting factor in this game comes from duels. You sometimes get to fight an enemy one-on-one, which tends to rely more on the parry system. Other than relying more on parries though, the combat in these fights is pretty much the same, which can get a little repetitive. I can't say I didn't enjoy the combat as a whole though, even with some of these problems. Because of that, I'm giving combat 59 points. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned how Ghost of Tsushima is my first look at samurai culture, and I'm hoping that it taught me something. Well, I tried to share today 4 lessons that Ghost of Tsushima did teach me. It was a fun game, it got me looking into parts of history that I've never really read up on in the past, and I'm hoping to learn more about samurai culture. It actually was really fascinating, and it's something I want to dive into a little more. Now, for the game itself, we do have exploration at 83 points, we have story at 66 points, collectibles at 32 points, combat is at 59 points, and that brings the grand total to 240 points. Now that puts Ghost of Tsushima at number 18 out of 35 on my game list, below 2018's God of War, but above Untitled Goose Game. I do recommend you at least try out this game. I do think it's not for everybody, but I think it's worth a shot. I think there's a lot you can like about it, there's a lot I liked about it, but it's not, perfect, everybody's gonna love it. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching this video. If you want to see more of what I do, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, my Twitter is going to be in the description of this video. If you have any ideas for future games you want to see me add to my game list, put a comment in the comments section. I'd love to read them, and I'd love to consider them as possible future games. Like I said, thank you so much, and have a good one.